Welcome, dear listeners. I am Grimwick, your guide through a world of imagined secrets and half-remembered tales. The stories you are about to hear spring from my imagination, though at times they may brush against real souls and fragments of history. Each diary holds 50 entries, revealed one by one, like pages turning in candlelight. Miss not a single chapter, and keep close to the little bell that calls whenever a new entry awakens. And if you whisper in the comments whose diary you long to uncover, well, perhaps that very volume already rests in the shadows of my collection. So then, my companions, let us begin.
Navy Street, Park Slope, Brooklyn, 1910 to 1912. I remember the smell first. Barbicide and warm lather, bay rum and talc. My old man kept the shop like a church, every mirror polished, every tool in its place, every customer treated like he might be the last. If you watch close, you learn things a school don't teach. A man will confess to a barber, see, he'll tell you what his wife don't know, what his boss can't hear, what the priest shouldn't repeat. The towel over the eyes, the blade at the throat. It makes truth easy as Sunday morning. My father wasn't a priest, but he forgave plenty with a clean shave and a straight part. He had hands like a surgeon and ears like a confessor. "Alphonse," he'd say, stroking that razor on the lever, "a man's secrets are his currency. Spend 'em wise." I watched him work the same chair for 12 years, never once saw him cut a customer, never once heard him repeat what was whispered in that chair. We were 9 kids in a railroad flat that sounded bigger than it was. Voices bouncing off thin walls, dreams echoing in narrow hallways. Navy Street goose-step to the dock bells and the Irish cops' whistles. A rhythm you learned or you left. Ma stitched like she was rowing a boat, always pulling us towards something she called better, though none of us knew exactly what better looked like. We just knew it wasn't here. We weren't poor if you measured by Sunday sauce. Ma could make magic with bones and time, turn scraps into something that smelled like heaven and tasted like home. We were poor everywhere else. Poor in shoes that let in the rain, poor in coats that couldn't keep out February, poor in the kind of quiet that comes when the rent man knocks and nobody moves to answer. But poverty teaches lessons money can't buy. A boy learns quick what respect costs in Brooklyn, and the coin is always silence. You don't point at the men who wear good suits and walk soft. You don't stare when packages change hands in doorways. You say good morning to men who don't deserve it, and good evening to men who earned it the hard way. That's not fear talking. That's survival. Like carrying an umbrella when clouds gather. I took to numbers the way some kids take to stickball or marbles. Pennies lined up in neat little platoons, expenses marching in formation, earnings standing at attention and saluting. Figures are honest, even street school begins where the nun's ruler ends. Sister Mary Catherine could teach you Latin and catechism, but she couldn't teach you how to read a man's eyes when his words don't match his hands. You learn that in doorways and alleys, on corners where conversations stop when footsteps approach. You learn how to square your shoulders without raising your hands, strength without threat, confidence without challenge. You learn how to smile so it don't look like invitation or provocation, just acknowledgement that you see and you understand. You learn who to cross and who to cross the street for, who deserves a nod and who earns a wide berth. A boy with 5 older brothers doesn't grow soft. He hardens like steel in a forge, shaped by pressure and heat. Frank taught me to throw a punch that counted. Ralph showed me how to take one without flinching. James explained why sometimes the smart move is walking away, and why sometimes it ain't. I wasn't looking for trouble, understand, but I was built not to run from it when it came looking for me. The older boys knew things the younger ones whispered about. They knew which poker games were straight and which were crooked. They knew which cops could be reasoned with and which ones reasoned with nightsticks. They knew the difference between a man you could trust and a man you had to watch. They taught me that reputation is currency. You spend it careful, and you earn it back careful. On Sundays after Mass, my father would look at my shoes before he looked at my face. The shine told him everything he needed to know about the week I'd had, the company I'd kept, the respect I'd shown myself and the world. A man who don't care about his appearance, he'd say, working the brush in small circles. Don't care about much else either. Shine meant respect, for the Lord, for the block, for yourself, for the people who had to look at you. I keep that lesson polished in my head even now. When a man forgets his shine, the world remembers it for him, and the memory ain't kind. But it wasn't all toughness and hard lessons. There was music in those streets if you knew how to listen. An organ drifting from an open window on summer evenings. A baby laughing like the radiator pipes were tickling it. A trolley clanging warnings that nobody heeded because we all knew how to dance with danger. The pushcart vendors called their wares in 3 languages, creating a symphony of commerce that started before dawn and ended after dark. Fresh fish, mixed with pane fresco, and apples, sweet apples. The city was a band that never rested, never took intermission, and a boy like me learned to keep time with all of it. There were good days, too. Days when Pop's tips were heavy and Ma hummed while she cooked. Days when the older boys included me in their plans instead of sending me home. Days when the numbers in my head balanced so perfect it felt like music. People like to turn a life into a straight road. Born bad, lived worse, died worst. That's a fairy tale for men who never looked close at their own fingerprints. Never wondered what their own choices might look like under different light. Truth is, I was a son before I was anything else. A brother who shared bread and blankets. A kid with a good memory for faces and numbers, clean collar on Sundays, and enough sense to listen more than I talked. I wanted what any boy wants, what any man wants if he's honest. A decent table where family could gather. A hot plate for Ma that didn't take 20 minutes to boil water. Maybe a little icebox that didn't sweat on everything we put in it, making the bread soggy and the milk sour. I wanted a door that locked from the inside, and a bed that didn't sag in the middle like a hammock. I wanted respect that didn't have to be earned new every morning. I wanted choices that didn't all taste bitter. I wanted tomorrow to look different from yesterday. Simple things, really. The kind of things that shouldn't require a war to win. What I got instead was a world where the rules came with a price tag that kept changing, where the game was rigged, but you still had to play, where winning meant somebody else had to lose, and losing meant you might not get another chance to win. I learned that lesson young, on Navy Street, watching the blade in my father's hand, not the part that cut, but the part that caught the light and threw it back like a warning. Sometimes it ain't what you use that matters. It's how you let it be seen, how you hold it, how you make others think about what you might do with it.
That blade taught me about power before I knew the word, about respect before I understood the price, about fear before I learned the difference between being afraid and being careful. I carried those lessons farther than any of us guessed back then, farther than Navy Street, farther than Brooklyn, farther than anyone thought a barber's son should go. But that's a story for another day.
I trust you enjoyed this glimpse into a most curious diary. If so, leave behind a small token of your delight with a like, and do consider joining our circle by subscribing. And remember, ring the little bell, and you shall be the very first to know when another diary or a fresh entry emerges from the shadows. And if a whisper stirs in your mind, a thought, a riddle, perhaps a name of someone whose secrets you would dare to uncover, leave it for me below. I read them one by one. And who knows, your wish may guide my hand to the very next diary I choose from my collection.